Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence with psychiatrist Bernard David Beitman, MD. Dr. Beitman is the founder of the Coincidence Project. The project encourages people like you to tell each other coincidence stories. To learn more about Dr. Beitman's work, put Connecting with Coincidence in your web browser. You'll find his book, his Psychology Today blog, and the interviews from this podcast. And now your host, Bernard Beitman, MD.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. I am your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. Yes, this is CC with BB 2.0. If you wish to support us here at Connecting with Coincidence, please like and subscribe for more content so we can increase subscriber numbers, which increases our reach, which increases the number of people who hear this. And we would like to have you and other people hear our guests, because we have some great ones lined up into the future as well as today. The story I'm going to tell today is about how around the same time I came across the word charts and charting when I was looking around for a title for my now next coincidence book. Last week I was trying to come up with this title because needed to do something different from my first book, which was also called Connecting with Coincidence. I tried What a Coincidence and Knowing Coincidences and Mapping Coincidences, because the book is a map for the territory, but somehow that mapping title didn't work very well. So how about Navigating Improbability? Well, too many syllables. So I looked up synonyms for mapping and found charting. And instead of improbability, I tried chance, and there I had charting chance, the two CHs. I like that. I like to get a little rhyming in there in that way. Charting chance. So after all this, I was bleary-eyed from getting up early and staying up late trying to figure out problems with the publisher, including this one. So I began to eat breakfast, and there in front of me was a New Yorker magazine issue that I had turned to an article about visualizing data, which meant a history of the origin of charts. So I get to go, oh, okay. So the answer to the title question I had right in front of me. And believe me, I'm very good at missing what's right in front of me. Well, what's also right in front of me today is our guest. Our guest is Pninit Russo-Netzer, who is a senior lecturer and the head of the education department at Achva Academic College and a researcher at the University of Haifa, all in Israel. Her main research and practice interests are in helping people find meaning in life. She is the head of the Compass Institute for the Study and Application of Meaning in Life, and the founding head of the academic training program for logotherapy, which is meaning-oriented psychotherapy, originated on the ideas of Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust camp survivor who kept himself going in part because he wanted to write this book, and he did. His story and what he learned has impacted many, many people. That's Viktor Frankl. She develops training and intervention programs and publishes scholarly journals, articles, and books on this and related topics. Pninit, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for having me here.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a delight to have you. Could you tell us a story, please?
Yeah, sure. When I think of synchronicity, and I really like the way you kind of began our talk today, I think always about sacred moments. It's Ken Pargament's idea of sacred moments that, kind of emerge from being in a dialogue with life. And I always see that, we need meaningful moment catcher, just as we have butterfly catcher and dream catcher. I always say that we need meaningful moment catcher to collect moments of grace and interconnectedness. And the story I want to share, it's not something which is extraordinary, big, or supernatural. is something that it's very, for me, very ordinary, mundane moment. But I think when we notice and pay attention, we can see it almost anywhere. So, and I always like the quote of Jung in this context. He said that synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. And I want to share my story because I think for me it was a moment of grace or a moment of sacred moment. So in one of my classes, I was teaching about the idea of Socratic dialogue, Socratic questions, as in a metaphor of midwifery. And then someone mentioned the book called The Midwife of the Soul. I instinctively felt a connection to the title, though I've never heard about this book before. And I kept looking very extensively, and even in an urge, I couldn't tell why, in libraries, bookstores, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And a few days later, I was visiting my parents' house, and my dad, he collects books from ancient books and books from all over. He has thousands of books. And I've been asking him about this book. Maybe you know, Midwife of the Soul. He said no. And the moment he said no, my brother came into the door holding a book under his arm. And he's saying, and he was saying, I found this book on a bench on the street where I live. What are the odds? Yeah. And he said, I think you may find it interesting. And he gave it to me. And it was The Midwife of the Soul. And for me, it was an awesome synchronistic experience because it's a book that's really hard to find. And just as a moment that I was asking about that, he just gave it to me. So it was an ordinary moment, but it was also an extraordinary moment for me.
It's quite a story, and there are stories that are somewhat like that. But that's a little bit on the yet more improbable direction. I really like the timing of it, that you ask your father, do you have the book? You got all these books, don't you have this one? And he didn't answer it, but his son answered it. And there was the answer to your, let's say, prayer, because you've been looking around for that for a while. Hey, I like to ask two questions about meaning, because if you look at a coincidence, there are usually not just two major meanings. I'll talk about those, but there are four meanings in a meaningful coincidence. The simple ones are the meaning of the two images, that there's the same. The means are the same. So the book and the book, your thing in your head and the book that showed up with is the meaning. Another meaning is that's more prominent, and the two that I pay more attention to are the meaning to you personally. How did it affect you? And that meaning comes up in a second kind of meaning, which is the emotional reaction people have. But then there's a related meaning that is, what does it have to do for your future? How does this impact your view of the future, yourself and you in life? So there's the emotional meaning, and then there's the future meaning. And then there is the meaning of explanation. How do you explain that? So four kinds of meanings in a meaningful coincidence. The two that I pay most attention to are, what does it mean to you? And what does it say to you about possible explanations?
I really love that, the way and it's really, when we'll talk later maybe about research, we found very similar ideas that resonate with what you're just saying about detecting meaning in our life story and also what it means to us. I think it really, for me, it had, I think even the title, I've been thinking a lot of what it represents for me, the midwifery of the soul, because I think something about this title drove me even crazy to trying to find it. It was something that, and I think in a way, I hope I try to help people kind of give birth to the things they already growing in their own souls, and sometimes this kind of a spark that we see in people's eyes. And I try to bring it into light in different ways, that in my practice, in my work, in my teaching. And in a way, it was kind of, now that you're asking about it, I haven't given it much thought until you mention it now. But I think the title made me curious, because I think curiosity really drives me in my work, in my research, to try to really understand what, kind of makes people come alive. What lights this kind of a spark, or this kind of a restless heart of them, or souls. And I think in being a midwife, you're able to draw that into the light. It's their journey, it's their spark, but sometimes you need to elicit that from to the outside. So I think in a way it was kind of maybe a message or validation. So maybe just thinking about that out loud. And if you're willing, there's another story just popped into my mind, if I can share.
Hold on to that story for a minute,
okay.
because I think you have a beautiful image there. It wasn't just you might be interested in this book, as somebody said. It's that the name was what you think you do, what you feel you do, that you are. We can always say we hope, but let's say you do, just for the sake of our audience, because you wouldn't keep doing it if you didn't do it sometimes. You just don't, it never works all the time. We got that one straight. But you're able to help find meaning in life. And that can be translated into a more visual, birth-oriented idea with this phrase, the midwifery of the soul, so that you could begin to get a different look at what you were doing by using this metaphor. Because like a lot of this stuff, it's nice to have different metaphors. The truth marches ahead with an army of metaphors. You have to have different ideas about them, about the same thing, because they're complicated ideas. So this is what you do. So let's stay with that, because that helped you. The one meaning was that it helped you see your meaning in life more clearly.
Yeah, I like that. I like your interpretation. Yeah, I think so. I think it resonated with something deep within me. That thank you so much for putting into words.
Well, I think it did, and that's what it's what I said sounded right to you. So. And then we get to the fun part of this. For me, I mean, it's fun. Both of these are fun. These two meanings. Now, how does this happen, Pninit? How does this happen? How does this happen?
Wow, that's a huge question. I think we're all trying to figure out this kind of. For me, maybe I'll try to. For me, this was one of my drives to explore that in research, because I always felt, there's a beautiful. I love quotes. There's a beautiful quote by Albert Einstein. He said that there are two ways to live your life. One, as if though there's nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And I've been feeling for years a split between those two ways of living, realizing the power of full engagement with life, participation, the magic of interconnectedness and mysterious part of life. And on the other hand, the dominant objective reasoning in science, and the need to quantify the unquantifiable, and the cynical sometimes approach that people have within science about those kind of ideas. So I felt that sometimes our theoretical conceptualization, kind of a breakdown reality when we need to look at it as a holistic frame. And so for me, trying to bring those two separated worlds together, science, I would say, to understand that in more broader sense, and those kind of ideas that fascinated me on a human level, was something really unique. And for a long time, people looked at that as something off limits. The usual question was, how can you measure such a thing? It's not scientific. You're wasting your time and energy. No one will publish that. And I think lately I've been seeing that the more I research those kind of issues, such as synchronicity, authenticity, wholeness, all of that, we realize that people have a hunger, even a yearning within science to understand those issues. We have a yearning for people to see us as a whole person. So once I started to look at that, and we've done it very systematically. We've started with phenomenological qualitative research that tried bottom up to understand people's experiences. And now we're trying to, we created a questionnaire, and now we're doing that also in quantitative research.
Well, you're going into what your research is, and I want to be able to do that. I recognize that you've gone from qualitative, which is mostly what I've done. I had some database stuff early on, like just finding out whether coincidences happen or not, how frequently they are, and what are the variables that seem to increase them, one of which is searching for meaning of life, not just having meaning of life. You have to be searching from what we were able to find. But what I want to go back to an earlier thing you just said in this, when you just started talking, you put the science and wholeness contradictions to each other. And yes, they are right now. Quantum mysticism may be saying something different about that, but we won't have to go for that. You said to be amazed at the interconnectedness of everything. Now, I want you to stay with that for a minute, because that is what I am trying to do too, is not just be amazed at it, but recognize that it's there. This interconnectedness is there, and that synchronicity and serendipity help show the ways in which we are interconnected, the way you are with your father and your brother, as that indicated. So it shows the web of interconnection. It highlights them. So I'm trying to talk about a science that is descriptive first of just what you said. Let's be amazed. But what astronomers do is get amazed by some weird thing happening in this way out someplace, and then they try to figure out what's going on. And that's what I would take what you said about interconnectedness as a next step that we might do, especially in the coincidences helping define these interconnections.
Yeah, it's like a glimpse into that interconnectedness between us and the world. It's kind of for me, it's a glimpse. I mentioned sacred moments because for me, it's also a glimpse into a deeper and wider dimension to life. There's more than meets the eye in so many ways. And I think those moments when we pay attention, when we share those stories, like you invite us all to do, it makes us realize more how much there is to life that we not always in connection with in our busy life, trying to get from one place to the next in our to-do lists.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And what you are doing is helping people see themselves as part of this interconnectedness, this web of interconnectedness with others and with all the other things running around out there. Like I connect with trees. Some people do that. Other people with birds, other people with the earth in some way, as well as with other people. There's all connections to be made, to become aware of and to deepen. And I think that's what you're saying you try to help people do.
Yeah, I really love the way, for me, it's sky, actually, the skies. I always take a picture of the sky. I feel it's never the same sky each day. And there's something about being in a childlike wonder and awe that nothing is mundane. Nothing is really, sometimes in a position of being there, done that, everything is right, copy paste the same day. But if we're in awe, like children do towards the world, then we see so many connections. Then we can really feel connected to each other, and of course to the world. And as you mentioned, trees and birds and the sky and those little things.
what do you connect with besides people?
I mentioned the sky. I always look at
Tell us about that, your connection with the sky.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us
think
about that.
yeah, it starts with the idea. I don't remember who said that. There's a beautiful again quote. Did he said that if the stars would only come out once in a century, people will go, out in awe. But because it's every day, every night, people are not amazed by the sky. It's amazing. It's not human made. And for me, I always take a picture in the morning of the sky, of the clouds. It's always reminds me of how every day is unique. Every day is irreplaceable. There's only one day. Even the weather is not really the same, and the sky is never the same from each day to the next. And so are we. We're changed, and the sky is changed. So I think for me, it's a reminder of the vastness that we're living it, and also the timelessness, and also that I'm a small part of a big universe. For me, this is kind of a reminder, I think.
So that's what the sky means to you. Now, one of the things that I think about the sky, I've gotten to the last couple of days going out and walking at night, like 2 a.m. or so, and it's
Wow.
hot. It's hot here, so it's nice out there. It's so soft and quiet. The street lamps are noisy, the noisiest things around. And there was a half moon out last night, and it's a beautiful feeling to be in that with so much quiet. But one of my amazements is goes like this: look up in the sky, the sun and the moon, 93 million miles apart they are. But from where we stand, as eclipses show us, they appear to be exactly the same size. What a coincidence. What a coincidence.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And I think in the arts, and we see that throughout history, people have been puzzling about the sky, and I really love the way you kind of put that into words.
And
Yeah.
puzzling. So what I'm learning from you about how you do things is that you try to help people feel their connection and uniqueness of this moment, their connections out there and the uniqueness of this moment, and come to have a gratitude for it, but of being there, and that you help them become grateful by recognizing the uniqueness of now.
Yeah, and I also think it's a precondition to both synchronicity moments, but also for meaning in life. Because I always give an example that you can hug your child, which can be a big source of meaning for you. But if over his head you're looking about the piles of emails and laundry and dishes, it's a meaningless moment. But if you're hugging him and you're truly in the moment, you're present, then it's a meaningful moment. And for someone looking from the outside, it's the same moment, but for you, the experience is different. So I think being present, and as you mentioned, being grateful, which is something that we're not usually in this kind of perspective, it's usually being taken for granted until it's taken from us, whether it's health or, air conditioning when it's hot and whatever. So I think it's in a way, it connects us with life. Viktor Frankl has a beautiful saying. He says that you can have it all, but you can still say no to life. But you can sometimes have nothing, like even in Auschwitz, and say yes to life. And it starts with this idea, with this inner decision of saying yes to life, of participating with life, that you can be more present and experience more this kind of interconnectedness and meaning and well-being, all of that, even in very.
I'm glad you just said what you said. I feel like one of your students now, because this sounds like something that you've said before, and it's such a good message for you to be doing. I think it's a wonderful way for me to understand you and what you're doing. So I thank you for that. It's really a pleasure to hear what you're trying to do. I'm going to add what you're also doing is sparking curiosity, sparking wonder. And one of the benefits of coincidence awareness is that you get to wonder. You say, "What? I wonder who." You get to wonder about what's going on out there, which has been my problem since very young. Because I keep doing this because I don't know what's going on out there, but I want to try to figure out what I can. It's something's going on, but nobody's telling me, so I got to figure it out myself. That's
Oh,
that's what I do. It's curiosity. School did not dampen your curiosity or mine. We're just looking for it. We got to keep going. That's what we do.
yeah, into the unknown. Yeah.
Into the unknown. That's the mystery. Einstein had another quote with that too. But you were going to tell us a story early on, Ben. We got off on the meaning of life, which is important to both of us. But if you'd like to tell us that story, and maybe you could tell us something about how you personally got interested in synchronicity, please do.
Yeah, I think I would just another ordinary experience, and I think it's really connected to noticing. I think being a noticer, it's something it's a quality, and curiosity. It's a quality that's very needed to notice this kind of synchronicity experiences, and also I mentioned the meaningful moment catcher, being able to catch that. And so in one of my travels to Europe, I was waiting in a train station. And there was a piano there, like a little mall within the train station. And then I saw a homeless man setting aside his backpack, his whole life within this backpack. And he put it aside and starting to play the piano that was standing there. And he played so beautifully that I had to stop everything I've done and just put away my phone and I stood there and listened. And an elderly woman that was standing just walking there, she heard the beautiful music and she approached him. And I stood close to them to see this magical, I would say that was a magical moment when their eyes met. And she said to him, I can't forget that this melody that he played reminded her of a heartwarming moment with her late father, that she was just thinking about him as the homeless man started to play the music. And when she said that, they both had tears in their eyes. That was a beautiful, human moment. And I was so moved that I had to take a picture of that magical moment, to capture that moment. And then I looked up and I saw a sign that was just behind them. And the sign said, "Brighten someone else's day." And I felt it was so powerful and a meaningful coincidence that he brightened up her day, that moment, a whole world encapsulated in this small moment in time. That was for me a moment of grace. And I think when I try to help people to capture those kind of, like you're doing, synchronistic moments, to be aware of them, I always say, take a picture, write down about that, trying to collect them, these moments, to be aware, because sometimes we can just say, oh, that's a nice moment. Just, oh, what a coincidence. And we're not letting that sink in. And for me, taking those pictures every now and then, look at those pictures, that was for me another, again, mundane moment, but seeing the extraordinary within the ordinary. So it's just another kind of a story that popped into my mind.
Well, that is a beautiful example of the extraordinary and the ordinary, because it is extraordinary. Just that there was a piano there and the guy started playing it, and that he could play it, and that the woman wanders by and reminds her of her father. I mean, those are low probability events right there.
Right.
You set that up for a movie to create, because movies have a lot of coincidences in them. So do novels, because they make moments like that where they're, as you described them. But your description and the heartfeltness in your description is so evident, and it's so wonderful that you were able to convey that. And to me, the wonderful thing is it didn't involve you. You were the observer of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that sign that was just behind them, they didn't notice. I didn't notice the sign before that moment, that magical moment. It was just there. And if I hadn't, paused with all my busyness and time schedules and my phone and all of the things I had to do, and just be there, be present, and to notice the things that sometimes, we're not catching those moments. There's so many going on around us, I think, in the world, and being able, as you mentioned, being in this kind of a web of connections, being there and paying attention and being a part of this magical moment between them. And I think more than that, it was also her late father was there, and I was there, and the sun was there, and the whole, people are going by. There was, as you mentioned, it was like a scene, but it was beautiful. And if I hadn't, paused, it was just another, moment in my day that I couldn't even remember.
Without trying to get into any more discussion about it, I think you helped that synchronicity to happen.
Wow.
And the way that I've come with that is realizing just today how my participation on certain sports teams, like we went undefeated in high school, and my participation in it, they couldn't have done it without me. One of the coaches said, and I had no idea what he was talking about. I just liked to play. But my presence fits something into the puzzle that made that be able to happen. And your willingness to be open to that experience increased the probability of it happening, I think.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. That's something I'll continue to ponder on. Sounds beautiful. Thank you. I think
You're welcome. We're not, just like within psychotherapy or helping people, we're not just objective out there.
Yeah.
We participate in this thing. And
Yeah.
and if you think of the web, you can't deny what I'm saying as possible, because it's all part of interconnectedness.
Totally. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I think you really, you mentioned metaphors, and sometimes these ideas are really hard to capture in words. But when you find or you hear a word that resonates, then it feels like,
Yeah, that
click.
word going from experience to words is a real trick, to be
Yeah.
able to do it in a good one-to-one, close to one-to-one possibility, and be able to
Then
help people do that is something. So we're coming to the end of our time. Yeah, it has gone fast. I agree with you.
wow.
Tell by
No.
your tell by your facial expression about that. I was surprised too. We were getting into it, and you have a wonderful message. And what I want to leave with other things that you've said that I get from this practically is I encourage people to tell each other coincidence stories. That's what the Coincidence Ambassadors group is doing, and we're trying to do that more. And your friend from Australia is certainly doing that, out there making that happen. That's what we're trying to do. So I also encourage people to write them down. But you're adding another element to it, is to take a picture of it and then write about what happened in the. So that's a visual reminder. It's a more in-depth addition to what I'm calling the coincidence diary.
Yeah, I've been doing that also with Ikigai, which is a reason for existence, asking people to take a picture of something that represents, because as we mentioned, it's really hard to find it in words. Sometimes when we capture that in words, it leaves so much, outside of the experience. But when you take a picture and you give it a title, it's something that, it reminds you of that moment. And also it's something that makes you realize more insights than just verbally trying to explain.
You're right. And you said RTI, reason to live, is reason.
Ikigai. Ikigai, it's a Japanese term for reason for existence.
Oh, that's
like,
I'm sorry, I thought it was Hebrew or an acronym, but
sorry.
say it again slowly for us, and then we'll have to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Wow. We didn't even say about the research. Okay. Ikigai.
Ikigai, a reason to live.
Yeah, it came from research on longevity. People who live beyond their 100 years old all have a purpose, a sense of a why, a reason for existence. And I always kind of encourage people to try to figure out what's their ikigai, because in Japan, children know from a young age your ikigai. And I think in the Western society, sometimes we either look for it or we're not even, it's not in our, even we don't even think about that. So
we don't see it as a life enhancing, is what you're telling
exactly.
me. And
Exactly.
it's good medicine, if you, in Western terms, to have a purpose in life.
Yeah. It's an organizing force to life, something that really organizes.
This is your life. And so guess what mine is?
What's yours?
Well, guess what my ikigai is, Iki? Guess what mine is?
I think connections, connecting.
No, I'm doing this job of yeah, it's partly that. That's underneath it. My job is get the coincidence thing out there. That's my job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a job. I think of it as a job. Like, I've got to do it. I want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't like it. I'm glad to do it. I have all kinds of things about it. But having conversations like this for people to listen to is part of my purpose in life. And if I would summarize what your purpose in life is, mainly one main one is, your purpose in life is, as Viktor Frankl's was, to help people find meaning in their lives.
Yeah, I hope so. And I just want to add just a few sentences that much like you, I'm trying to get these ideas into science and to try to really quantify that based on people's experiences. And we've developed a new, and one of the first one, I think, questionnaire to assess these kind of experiences. And we also validated that with different variables of well-being. I've done that with Dr. Tamar Itzikson, and we hope to publish that soon and to help people use that in therapy, in organizations, in education, to really understand themselves better, like you're doing. And I hope to share the mission together of helping more people get.
Well, thank you for the beginning of what might be another interview between us.
I hope so. Yeah.
I know you wanted to talk about that, but I wanted to get to know you better and more get the subjective and the qualitative of you. And I think I have a nice sense of it. So, and I hope everybody who's listening to it does as well. So thank you very much for being with us and being on the show.
Thank you so much, Bernie, for having me here.
This psychosphere is our mental atmosphere, like a hologram of cosmic consciousness.